Okay, guys, get around. Okay, we're going to do a manual search. We're not using the canine.
Just want to let you know that the quality of work that I'm seeing in these reports is excellent. What am I missing here, Williams?
Come on, man, let's clear this thing. We get out of here in an hour.
Are you asking as a friend, or is this official?
They inspire us, encourage us, and motivate us to meet extraordinary challenges. They are sometimes our heroes, role models, someone we respect, someone we look on as a friend. They are the people who, as one writer put it, have learned to bear the pain of leadership. Hello, I'm Kathy Clark. Leadership is the focus of today's Post telecourse. Leadership on the watch. Leadership and the role it plays in law enforcement supervision. We will take a practical approach to the topic, underscoring the perspective that leadership is not something you develop by attending the latest management bestseller conference, nor is it something you obtain from a book or even a 2-hour telecourse. Leadership is something that stems from who you are, who you have become as a result of various experiences and relationships. In fact, we will adopt the perspective that leadership is the reflection of the values you have chosen from others and how you reflect those values in your daily life, both on and off duty. Simply put, leadership is not so much taught as it is absorbed on a moment-by-moment basis in everyday circumstances that accumulate into an environment of expectation and standards of execution. The key questions are: what characteristics can we identify which are shared by recognized leaders? And how do we make the distinction between good managers, or in this telecourse, supervisors, and leaders? For the purposes of this telecourse, we will make one clear distinction. Managers are people who do things right, while leaders are people who do the right thing. What kind of leader are you? Let's begin with a leadership quiz. Number 1. You feel strongly that you have made a poor decision in your supervisor position. Do you A, ignore the feelings since no one else has mentioned it, B, begin calling the actions of others into question to cover your own possible responsibility, C, ask for feedback from colleagues and the officers of your watch and apologize for your actions if it's appropriate, D, note the ambiguity in the department policy with your lieutenant in an effort to head off any criticism. Question 2. An effective leader is one who A, spends a good deal of time working with the members of the team so they can become effective enough to replace him or her. B, builds an atmosphere of trust so that the team can offer constructive criticism without fear of retribution. C, knows that no one can lead effectively without first learning to lead oneself. After all, how can anyone expect professionalism if they do not display it themselves? D, all of the above. Number 3, your lieutenant has asked you to recommend an officer for special detail, which may lead to that officer's professional advancement. Do you A, carefully review the strengths and weaknesses of your team and recommend the officer who you feel is best qualified, explaining your choice to others? B, do you let it be known that the assignment is available, and then see which officer works the hardest to gain your favor? C, just ask for volunteers. D, suggest to the lieutenant that no officer on your watch is up to the challenge of a special detail. Question 4. You have been instructed to communicate what you believe is a poor command decision regarding an ongoing program to the officers on your watch. Do you A, deliver the decision with a "this is the way it is" approach? You know you must be loyal to command staff if you ever hope to advance yourself. B, begin to undermine your lieutenant and the captain by calling them incompetent behind their backs. Maybe you can get them fired. C, start looking for openings at other departments. With this kind of stupid leadership, your career will never go anyplace here. D, try to communicate the command decision clearly and honestly, seeking their input as to how the decision may be best implemented and the department's overall objectives achieved. Question 5. You observe a team member taking extra care with the details of his or her job. Do you A, Make note of the positive behavior, planning to mention something when you feel the officer has done enough things to warrant it. B, take a moment to tell the officer that his or her effort has not gone unnoticed. C, remind the officer that details often take extra time that officer could use effectively in the field. D, nothing. After all, the officer is just doing the job he or she is paid to do. Question 6. You have a team member who's always grumbling about almost everything. Do you A, grin and bear it, there's always one on the watch? B, listen to the grapevine to see if you can find out what's bugging the officer? C, ask the officer directly and privately what is bothering him or her and what could make things better? D, suggest to your lieutenant that it might be time to make a change on the watch. Question 7. Emotional intelligence is A, the ability to use insight into your emotions and others to understand how people think, make decisions, and interact. B, the ability to express your emotions and see yourself as others see you. C, the ability to make team members feel valuable and effective, motivating them toward peak performance. D, all of the above. Question 8. A member or members of your team are acting in opposition to your directives as team supervisor. Do you A, ignore them as long as they don't openly confront you? B, listen carefully to their criticism and then address the opposition calmly, without emotion, and guide the team back to the business at hand? C, put any opposing member of the team on report without comment? D, tell the team you're tired of bickering and walk out of the meeting? Question 9. Now, the team has a strongly negative reaction to a department decision. Do you A, listen to the team's objections and encourage them to find an acceptable solution to their opposition? B, shrug your shoulders and say, I'm just the messenger? C, obviously your leadership style is in conflict with the team. Tell your lieutenant that it's either them or you. D, grumble back at the team for their lack of appreciation for all you've done for them. And question 10. The team is really just a loose group of officers doing their own thing and making their own decisions. Now they need to work together. Do you A, threaten everyone with anything you can think of if they don't do what you say? B, create an immediate plan for team members to work together, assigning specific tasks and directives? C, tell everyone to either get together or go away and leave you alone? D, try to make sure that no laws are broken that will come back to haunt you? You can score your quiz as we move through the specifics of today's telecourse. You'll also find more self-evaluation materials in the accompanying workbook. Our challenge is to make the lessons of leadership practical. And to do that, we've set out 10 individual leadership characteristics, beginning with
Commerce Department.
Yes, Mr. President.
You're spending $47 million on an ad campaign to boost consumer confidence in the American auto industry.
Yes, sir. Well, you see, it's designed to bolster individual confidence in a previous domestic automotive purchase.
So we're spending $47 million so that somebody can feel better about a car that they've already bought?
Yes, sir, but I wouldn't characterize that way.
No, I'm sure that's important, but I don't want to tell some 8-year-old kid that he's got to sleep in the street because we want people to feel better about their car. Do you want to tell him that?
No, sir. No, I sure don't.
A leader is a facilitator, helping officers do their job, dealing with management.
Command decisions may require creativity in implementation, even self-sacrifice, but creating the dialogue contributes to the cohesiveness of the team.
Now, guys, thank you. On a more serious note, judging from the number of report pages and intel that's found in our trash bins, it appears that you're not taking full advantage of our department shredders. Okay, now, if this is a moral issue, you might want to take that stuff and put it in the confidential bin. My suggestion is to use the shredders. It's much better. Okay? And a heads up that in the near future, our POA, I think it's about a week from now, our POA is going to be giving us a presentation on a new retirement fund opportunity. Anybody heard anything about that?
3% of 50?
Yeah, well, we can hope so. Okay, any questions on that one? That's very important. Okay, if not, we'll move on to the business at hand. I have a memo here from our supplies via the command. It says There will be no film available for field use until further notice, or the new budget year, whichever comes first.
What?
Okay. I guess the department has exceeded its allotment in film, and there simply is no reserve supply.
That's because the reserves have used it all up for their own personal scrapbooks. This is ridiculous.
That's pathetic. What are we supposed to attach to our reports?
Okay, guys, the supply memo makes no recommendation on that. I assume their expectation is a written description?
What?
Oh, great. More paperwork to take us off the street? Defense attorneys are going to drill us in court. I agree with Kevin. That's ridiculous.
That not only puts us in a bind, but ultimately reflects poorly on the department.
We're going to look like bozos.
And Sarge, who's the real victim? It's the citizens. How can we do 100% of our job without visuals?
They haven't thought this through. The bean counters have them cornered, and they're just overreacting again.
Okay, guys, I understand we have a problem here. Question is, what is the answer to it? What is the solution?
Maybe we can ask the victims if we can borrow their cameras. They all have Polaroids, don't they?
Hey, how about all of us throwing money into a kitty?
Yeah, like poker.
Yeah, it'd help cut the cost.
Well, there's a solution. Bottom line, even if we can somehow persuade the command to ease the purse strings, we still have an issue here, okay? We have a problem. I'll tell you what. I'll chip in the first $20 to get this thing jump-started. Is that a deal?
All right, here's my $2. There goes Starbucks.
Take plastic.
Kiss that goodbye.
Yeah, I got 22.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll call over to Costco today and I'll talk to the manager, okay? Maybe he'll be able to cut you guys some kind of a deal on some film. Make sure it's straight film, okay, or a disposable camera, no Polaroids. You know how expensive that stuff is.
Who's going to pay for the processing?
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Just keep in mind that you make good notes on each roll and only take the shots that you have to.
You know, we can just take 2 shots instead of 7.
Yeah, Kevin.
And you know, don't forget, they also have the generic brand over there to save us a lot of money instead of buying the major stuff.
Well, the citizens of River City thank you, and I thank you. Now, can we get on to the business at hand here?
Sure.
If they don't have the opportunity for input, anything that you put in front of them is going to go over 100% of the, 100% of the time with them. They're going to be maybe wanting to fight it because they thought of another way to do it, or we could do it better this way. If you put it out on the table, you get everybody's ideas right from the front, you probably do come up with a better plan than if you were to sit there and think of what to do just on your own.
You can listen to what your officers say and say they don't agree with that, they don't like it, and you can ask them why. What would you do different? Let's talk about this. And then you can take that information back to the lieutenant and so forth and discuss the policy, discuss the decision that was made, and this is how, and you become kind of like a counselor.
It's tough because they want to understand. They want to ask questions. Okay, that's what you say we have to do. Why? And you have to be able to give them a valid reason. And sometimes when the orders come or a change in policy comes down, the why is not explained. And I don't feel it's very productive to say, well, because, or because I said so.
Bill, what are some of the problem-solving skills of a good supervisor?
I think the term facilitator comes to mind, and I think it's very valid in that the fact of the matter is a supervisor or a leader, you're in that position leading, supervising people, grown adults, and I think that a good leader in solving problems draws from those people that they're supervising.
Ramona, Craig, anything?
Well, a leader's got to be able to, I mean, you're going to have your own point of views on everything that's going on, but you have to be able to be open and listen to what everybody else is throwing out there on the table and get a buy-in, kind of get a, pick and choose what they're saying, and as a consensus, get everybody to buy into whatever the decision's going to be. So you have to be open. You have to be able to listen to what other people have to say also.
Absolutely. I think you have to be, first and foremost, a people person. I think you have to bring the best talents that the people that work for you have to the table and keep everybody moving in a forward direction, moving in the way that the department wants, and having everybody put their best efforts forward and being able to, allow for everybody's input and foster an atmosphere that is conducive for open problem solving and just keeping everybody focused and directed.
In this case, do you think not taking a photo would have been the solution?
I think it's an option. I think it's something that could have happened. Not always are you going to be able to come up with a viable solution independent of maybe the one the department offers, but I think in certain circumstances you can bring the best minds of everybody that you have working for you together and come up with an equally good solution, but certainly that was another one.
You agree?
You know, it's okay not to come up with any other solutions other than what the department's putting out there. But what you have to do is make sure that if that's what you're going to go with, the fact you're not going to take photos, is you got to make sure that everybody is willing to go the one step or two steps further and properly document what they saw. You know, what is a picture's worth 1,000 words? Well, you got to write that 1,000 words because you don't have that picture. So if everybody's willing to do that and they're willing to express in writing what they saw because they don't have the aid of a picture, well, then that's fine too. So you just have to make sure that everybody is willing to at least do that if they cannot come up with another solution.
Well, Bill, are there other situations where not finding an alternative just wouldn't be practical, perhaps?
Yeah, it comes to mind one time in my career there was a gas crisis, and the direction given was that patrol will park their vehicles during their shift, and they would actually walk for, I think it was something like an hour per shift, and the idea was we'd minimize the use of the vehicle, minimize use of gasoline. So your question is, are there times when there are no options?
Right.
Yes, there are those times. In this scenario where the officers amongst themselves decide that they will go above and beyond the call of duty and purchase their own film, that's their call. They made that call. It stays within the spirit of the direction of the department. No violation of policy, no violation of laws. Would I order them to buy their own film? Absolutely not. What they chose to do, staying within the spirit, is fine.
Leaders work to find a way to do the right thing, find a fair solution, even when one may not be obvious at first glance.
Life's like that sometimes.
Like what?
Well, now and then, for no good reason a man can figure out, life will just haul off and knock him flat. Slam him again the ground so hard it seems like all his insides is busted. But it's not all like that. A lot of it's mighty fine. And you can't afford to waste the good part fretting about the bad. That makes it all bad. You understand what I'm trying to get at?
Yes, sir. Just that.
Sure, I know. Saying it's one thing and feeling it's another. But I'll tell you, Trick, it's sometimes a big help. When you start looking around for something good to take the place of the bad, as a general rule, you can find it.
A leader is someone who provides clarity.
Policy decisions are made for any number of reasons. Some are routine. Others meet with resistance. In this leadership characteristic, objections are listened to and used to connect the moment with the overall mission of the department.
All right. Oh, we appear to be missing somebody. Has anybody seen Wagner today?
Yeah, I saw her at Starbucks this morning, Sarge.
Well, I don't have a sick card on her, so we'll get going without her anyways. To begin with, we have a memo from the captain and lieutenant regarding a community group that is the Association of Retired Manufacturing Executives, which is requesting a civilian ride-along from our watch.
That's the same group I had last year. They're a complete waste of time. They just want to kill time.
Did we become a division of Parks and Recreation?
Maybe the captain should take them out.
All right, all right. Whether the captain, the lieutenant, or anyone else requested this ride-along, it really doesn't matter. The ride-along adheres to the objectives of departmental policy, and we are the instruments of that policy.
Perhaps the captain would like to be the instrument of policy on this one. It might give him an opportunity.
Let's leave command staff out of this. Let's look at it this way. Has it not made our jobs easier now that we're more accessible, more available to the public?
Yeah, sure.
Opinions?
I'll take it, Sarge. It would be my pleasure to show one of those retired whatevers an exciting time.
I appreciate your offer, Parker. However, if we're going to be getting these types of requests, we as a team need to come up with a solution.
So we're talking about how we do it, not if you do it, right?
Right.
Then if no is not an option, we should find a way to spread it around. Don't get me wrong, Sarge. I don't mind taking people on ride-alongs, but I don't want to do it all the time.
Fair enough. We'll all take our turns.
And can we swap with others on this one?
Meaning finding a fellow officer to take your turn?
In fair exchange, of course.
Maybe we should all take our shot, without exception.
Hey, I don't mind exchanging.
I think I'm going to keep a log at this time, and we'll all just take our turns.
And will you be taking a turn, Sarge?
Of course I will. In fact, I'm going to volunteer and I'll be the first. I'll take this week's ride along. Fair enough?
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Done. And if we want to change it later on, we can. Let's get down to the next business. As a sergeant, it's not your role to decide whether this is right or whether this is wrong in front of the troops. You can question the lieutenant. You can talk to the lieutenant and say, I don't agree with this, why can't we do this? And you can work with the lieutenant. But when you turn around and talk to the troops and your officers, you have to sell that product. You have to sell that direction that the department is going. And you have to live it, regardless of what you feel inside.
Craig, what is the moment of connection in this case?
I think it's the supervisor taking the opportunity in that particular vignette to address maybe an issue of fairness, in this particular situation, it was the issue of ride-alongs, I believe, and take that and turn it into something that was a little unpopular into at least a positive, and show that she is not immune or unaware to the criticism that the officers were leveling against management and the department as a whole, and maybe her in particular in trying to administer this policy, and turn it around and show some sort of equitable fairness involved. And you would be surprised how little below-the-radar, mundane, routine things like that can fester and turn into big deals. You would be surprised how that can spin very rapidly out of control, and it starts out with the most minor of things. If there is a perception, and sometimes perception becomes reality, if the perception of the officers is that you play favorites, that you have your chosen few, and that you dump on others. And I think you have to take quick, decisive action to, you have to look inward if in fact it might be granular truth to that, and take proactive steps to counteract that. But you would be surprised how little things can fester, and favoritism is a big one. If you take care of what some people would consider the small issues, the large ones tend to take care of themselves because they're looking at you, no matter what the scenario or the situation is for somebody that can be fair.
But didn't she connect Ramona as well, because she immediately says, okay, but let's deal with it then. I know everybody thinks this is terrible, so what do we do? Right,
and I mean, this is an issue that does come up in my entire career in law enforcement. Ride-alongs, they're questionable if people want to take them or not. She connected at the point where she said she got the group to come up with a solution. We'll all take them. We'll keep track of them. Sarge, are you going to take a ride-along also? Yeah, I'll take a ride-along too. So she connected with them at the point that, it's not above or below me or above me. I will do it too. I'll take my fair share. But she also got the others to buy in on, all right, then we will also. And she connected at that point.
She also made a point of defending, which I think was appropriate, an unpopular policy, if you will, of the administration with the rank and file. This is not open to debate. This is not open to negotiation. This isn't going to go away because you don't like it. We do a lot of things every day that we don't like, but that's part of being a mature person. It's a speed bump, we get over it, and we're professional, and we move on. And I think she set the standard and the tone very clearly in that particular vignette, that the actual policy and whether we are or not going to take it is not open to debate, and we're not going to sit here and denigrate and run the department down because you happen to disagree with it. However, we can make it a little more palatable and a little bit more agreeable to everybody by administering some sort of fairness.
Well, there was also a point of accountability and follow-up, and it was quick, but it was in the vignette where the sergeant said, I will keep a log. And in the world of paperwork, there's a lot of credibility to that statement. And what it's saying is this is more than a conversation. There will be accountability. And I think that connecting, that's what people wanted to hear. was that it's not only a discussion, but it will be followed through, and there will be an accountability process.
There's always comes a time in all of our lives where we all, you know, you always feel that you're getting dumped on, or how come I always have to do it? You know, how come so-and-so's not doing well? Maybe they're not aware of what the other person's doing, but she did when she stated that I'll keep a log and there'll be a fair way about doing this and we'll spread it out amongst everybody. That I think that the connection is right there. And it's hard not to get your favorites. I mean, you've got a squad of maybe, you know, 5, 6, 8, whatever it might be, and you might have, you know, 2, 3 people that hard workers, hard chargers out there doing everything. The other ones are kind of riding the coattails or whatnot, kind of on the edge. And you do tend to lean your favoritism. It's natural. It's human.
You know them personally.
But
you have some...
you've got to, like Craig was saying, put your favoritism aside, because then it is viewed as, you know, you're not being fair. You're dumping on these guys because you don't like them as much as these folks. So,
but again, as a leader, if you do this correctly, the issue of fairness in this particular vignette reinforced the harmony, presumably, that this leader is developing with her team. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think and what's interesting is the example given here is something that's applicable to everybody. And there are many tasks that we are given in law enforcement which are applicable to everybody on that patrol shift. And I think that's the distinction versus specialized tasks, because someone perhaps has received specialized training. But there are many mundane things, and I think that's the issue. They're very mundane, that we know by direction of the department everyone is supposed to be doing it. The question is, why are certain people getting stuck with it? And this issue of connecting, this issue of fairness, it's really a leader who steps up and says, everybody will be held accountable, but more importantly, there is an open accountability. The technique of, there's a matrix in the briefing book, and when in doubt, go look.
A leader connects the moment with the mission, never losing sight of the big picture or the harmony of the team.
They're not that different from you, are they? Same haircuts, full of hormones, just like you. Invincible, just like you feel. The world is their oyster. They believe they're destined for great things, just like many of you. Their eyes are full of hope, just like you. Did they wait until it was too late to make from their lives even one iota of what they were capable? Because you see, gentlemen, these boys are now fertilizing daffodils. If you listen real close, you can hear them whisper their legacy to you. Go on, lean in. Listen. You hear it?
A leader is someone who can act as a mentor and set an example for others to follow.
Leadership moments have no schedule. They can occur almost by accident or by design. But when they present themselves, they are an opportunity to impact for good or bad.
Why are you hassling me? Do you have something better to do, like go shoot some unarmed citizen or something?
Turn around and walk backwards toward me.
What?
Turn around. Walk backwards towards me. Keep coming, over here. Walking backwards, keep coming. Keep coming. Stop. Put your hands on your neck right here.
We didn't
Put
do
your
no-
hands right here on your neck.
Stupid.
Spread your legs. I'm gonna pat you down.
I bet you are. Would you get off on this? Ow, what are you doing? Ow!
You don't
Just put him in the car.
This is so stupid. This is not the whole, this is bullshit. Ow, I haven't done anything. This is
was the failure to yield, Sarge. I'd love to put him in jail, but I think a ticket will do.
There.
Sign the citation, Mr. Warren.
So stupid. There.
My sergeant and I observed you signed an X on the citation. Please sign your names.
Whatever. They're happy?
Your copy. You're free to go, sir.
Thanks. Ooh, I got a ticket. Smells like bacon.
Punk, you got something to say? Why don't you say it to my face?
Nancy, I need you to step back, please. Mr. Warren, I need you to get in your car. You are free to go.
Whatever. Whatever.
What just went on here? Did I miss something? You're pretty close to losing it out here. I didn't like what I saw.
That punk just got under my skin. It's no big deal.
You know, you're going to find a lot of people get under your skin, but that doesn't justify your behavior. You almost turned a minor traffic stop into a use of force.
Yeah, I guess I see what you mean.
You know, this is a tough job. If it wasn't, then anybody could do it. But while we wear the uniform, I expect you to be held to a higher standard. Are we on the same page with that?
Yeah, you're right, Sarge. It won't happen again.
Good enough. I think the impact that supervisors make, line supervisors, sergeants in particular, the impact is huge, whether that's positive or negative. I think everybody looks back in their career, they might not remember the impact that a commander or a particular deputy chief had on their life, but they can always remember the good sergeants and the bad ones that they've had their first couple of years on the department like it was yesterday.
The worst mistake you can make is not addressing the issue. And I see that, and I'm sure that every person in our profession has seen that, sergeants who won't address a problem or won't correct the behavior.
Now, in a situation like this, Craig, where is the moment between coaching somebody and reprimanding somebody in the field when you have an incident like this?
Well, I think it varies from incident to incident, and each one is different based on the severity or the potential severity of, or the ramifications of what may happen. But I think it's a constant balancing act. You don't want to, what they say, swat a fly with an elephant gun to the point where you completely turn off the officer to where they're looking at you as the messenger and they lose the message, and all they're walking away from was, well, he's a jerk. Mm-hmm. And they completely miss the message or the guidance, and that's what it really is guidance. You're trying to avoid a confrontation or a complaint or a civil rights violation or any number of pitfalls somebody can get into when they're letting their emotions drive the incident, as opposed to taking a step back like you can be as a supervisor, and viewing the dynamics when you feel that person is a little out of control or has the potential of being so. I think there is a fine line between guiding and reprimanding. And I think by reprimanding, though, in a larger sense, you are guiding. It's to modify behavior and avoid potential problems for that person in that person's best interest, whether they may realize it at the time or not.
But this particular scenario, your character coached this officer, making it clear that he felt that her behavior was
absolutely. I think he took
inappropriate.
A proactive, decisive stance. He intervened without letting the officer lose face in front of the subject, but stopping the potential action of the employee to the point where it became an extremely negative, counterproductive police-citizen contact that can roll over into a variety of things, the complaint being the least of them. I think the supervisor at the scene, and in this particular vignette, you have an obligation and a duty to do that.
That's got to be a tough call, though, sometimes when you're in the field, Ramona, to stop. You're busy, things are going, you may have another call, to stop and coach another officer on an inappropriate action.
If you're in the field and you actually witnessed it, such as that vignette, I mean, that's a prime time to use a coaching level. call the person aside and talk them through it, coach them through it instead of just reprimanding them, disciplining them. And unfortunately, those times are not real common because for the most part, you're not out there on every one of their calls. And you can guarantee that if you have an officer that's acting that way when you're there, well, they're acting that way, or if not worse, when you're not around. And that's what you got to worry about.
So essentially you're saying you almost have an obligation.
Yes. If you see it happen, then yes, you better seize that moment. That's a golden opportunity to address that issue, and it's fresh right there in their mind. Talk to them about it, and make them see their ways, what they did wrong, in coaching them through it.
As a supervisor, if you believe there's inappropriate behavior, what damage is done by taking no action? Mm-hmm. And again, are we condoning this? Does the message get out that this is okay? There's a danger by not responding immediately.
You're setting the tone for your officers.
Absolutely, and again,
this line you do not cross.
Should we be so naive to think that we haven't experienced supervisors in the past who you might say they're out there, they're spinning out of control as a supervisor, and the people they're leading are spinning out of control. And then let's go the other way. Have we experienced supervisors that really have their thumb on the people, and therefore their people are afraid to do anything? So you get this wide range. But what we do know from a common sense point of view, that if we condone that kind of behavior, the behavior will continue.
How difficult is it when you have this opportunity to not get involved in a little finger pointing here? How do you keep a reprimand and a coaching from becoming a, I've seen you do this 1,000 times, you're not doing it again, I'm writing you up next time. How do you, or maybe you eventually get to that point, but in that situation, how do you stop from finger pointing and accusing?
Well, I think you hold people accountable for their actions, and I think in that particular vignette, the supervisor was very clear in his observations and his perceptions that a very benign traffic stop was just this side of turning into a use of force issue when it could have been handled in so many other ways. I think that he would have been remiss had he not called her accountable for her conduct and said, this is the department's expectation, this is certainly my expectation, and I think he closed the counseling session with, are we on the same page? Make no mistake, this is my expectation while you work for me, and this is the department's expectation that you act in an appropriate manner, and that certainly was not. So I don't know so much as it was finger pointing, it was holding somebody accountable for their conduct.
Can you take a moment like this out in the street where you proactively dealt with the situation and use that information back in the squad room for the other officers on the squad?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a golden opportunity to redefine what the parameters are, not only in the use of force, but common courtesy and what the department and your personal I think everybody wants to know what your expectations are. They make it easier to work around. If everybody knows what the sergeant will and will not tolerate, or what the department's expectations are, I think everybody's in more of a comfort zone. Even if they internally don't agree with it, for whatever reasons they may harbor, I think they're comfortable with the fact that they know where you're coming from in no uncertain terms.
And if you take it back to the briefing room and you bring it up as a learning experience, be generic about it. Don't single out the individual officer that was involved in the incident or whatnot, because that can be very disruptive and damaging to that particular officer.
The opportunity to coach or mentor another officer can come at any moment, and a leader sees the difference between reaching and reprimanding.
Let me go.
No, not until I talk to you a minute.
I won't listen. You wouldn't tell the truth anyway.
I would too.
Would not?
I would, Tot. Tell you anything you want to know.
Can you lead a band?
No.
Are you a big liar?
Yes.
Are you a dirty, rotten crook?
Yes.
Let me go, you big liar.
Well, what's the matter? You wanted the truth, didn't you? Now, look, I'm bigger than you are, and you're going to stand there and get it all, so you might just as well stop wiggling. Now, there are two things you're entitled to know. One, you're a wonderful kid. I felt so from the first. That's why I wanted you in the band, so you stop moping around and feeling sorry for yourself.
What band?
I always think there's a band, kid.
A leader is someone who has been there and done that, can fix your mistakes by his or her past experiences.
Someone has said that the 6 most important words a leader can say are, I admit I made a mistake. Admitting a mistake or even the possibility of a mistake can create an atmosphere where officers see that criticism can be constructive.
Hey, you got a minute?
Yeah, sure. Come on in. What's up?
Did you listen in on that fail to yield pursuit yesterday?
Yeah, it went real smooth. Apprehension without incident. We got lucky on that one.
And?
And what?
Would you make any comments on the pursuit?
Well, what's your point?
Well, you know, when the pursuit went into the River Cove development, would you have called it off?
That's a tough call. It's a new development, but phases 3 and 4 haven't been built out yet.
Yeah, but the elementary and the middle schools are open.
Yeah, but I understand the pursuit didn't go that way.
Yeah, we came within 3 blocks. You know, a hard ride. We'd have been there.
And you're thinking what? That you should have called it off?
I don't know. I got a bad feeling about it.
What's your squad say?
I haven't asked them. I'm going to talk to them today about it.
Yeah, why don't you bounce it off them?
Okay, thanks.
I will say this, though. Go with your gut feeling. I think you'll generally be right.
All right, let's grab a seat. Got a lot to do. Yeah, we'll go over to the beat assignments in a minute. First, I want to review the failure to yield pursuit we had yesterday. First and foremost, I want to compliment the entire watch on your conduct and communication during the pursuit. I've spoken personally with Joe about his work as the primary unit and with Tony as the secondary. I'll also be making a note in my report to command suggesting commendations for both. With that said, however, I'd like your honest opinions and perspectives on the event itself. Thinking about the pursuit, are there things we could have done differently? Joe, as the primary unit, what was on your mind during the pursuit?
I was focused on the suspect. I wanted to stay with the vehicle.
Were you aware of your surroundings?
To be honest, I was locked in on the suspect. I relied on Tony to call the pursuit.
When I caught up to Joe, I identified myself and advised that I would call it. I remember heading towards the River Cove development area and had some concerns. This was due to the school and the large spectator gathering.
Yeah, the media chopper led to that.
Yeah, that's a good point. We saw people on the street watching, and we came within 3 blocks of 2 schools. Tony, when would you have terminated?
I would have terminated had that vehicle turned towards the schools.
I agree, and that's been my concern, the school and the kids and how this could have gone sideways.
And those things didn't occur to you at the time?
No, and I think they should have. The bottom line is, it was a good pursuit, and at the same time, it's healthy for us to think about alternatives.
I like to debrief afterwards of major incidents and talk about what could have we done better, what could have gone wrong. So I want to make sure that at all times my door is open, that we talk about it, and that we sit down as a group, as a team, or as one-on-one, and we discuss situations. And so I hope that by doing that, that trust is built. And when you have that trust, then when the time comes critical, the officers will respond to what you have to say.
If you've demonstrated that you've made mistakes and you'll hold yourself accountable, the officers expect to be held accountable also. And they generally will not have a problem with that.
Bill, is there more going on here than simply admitting a mistake?
I think what's taking place here is facilitating thought, facilitating options, facilitating awareness. It's a tool, it's an opportunity for a supervisor who perhaps second guesses to say, well, let's talk about this incident and let's all of us together come to the same conclusions, hopefully. And in this situation, by facilitating the discussions, ironically, the officers come to the same conclusion that the sergeant had come to before this discussion started. And that was awareness of the school zones, awareness, protection of the public. Should we be conscious of this? Was there a point when we would have terminated this pursuit? But to use that opportunity to facilitate, to come to these to have these same thought process, come to these same conclusions. It's an opportunity.
Is it necessarily, though, admitting you've made a mistake? I made a mistake, and is that somehow reducing your smarts in the eyes of this squad in any way?
I think it's taking an opportunity, in this case a pursuit, it could be anything actually, and turning it into a learning point, just so that you're not so dialed in, so locked in, and that is a particular problem in pursuits. I think it's also a good debrief to show everybody all the things that we did right, and to see, it's just like it's just a pulse check, just to see if we're all on the same page. Even after things went off successfully, you know, these are the things we did right. These are the concerns we had this subject done this. What would your response been? And I think unanimously in that vignette was that, well, I would have terminated it because of the danger of entering a school zone or a residential zone. I think it's just a barometer check to make sure that we're all on the same page at the same time.
So it's not necessarily doing a mea culpa that you made a dramatic error, right, Ramon?
Yeah, no, if you're asking the question, is it okay for a supervisor to admit that they've made the mistake? Yes. We are all humans. We too are vulnerable to make a mistake. Should we come up and admit when we've made one? Yes. Would you expect your officers to own up to it if they make a mistake? You hope so. I mean, yes, that's the right thing to do. You can. Nothing says that because you're a supervisor, you're not supposed to make mistakes anymore. You do.
But keep in mind too that this vignette was really an example of a training style. Right. I, as a supervisor, can stand up at a podium and say that when in pursuit, be aware of what streets you're on and your surroundings, be aware of the schools and the shopping centers. Oh, and by the way, if a pursuit heads towards the school, we should discontinue. I can say this, but it's coming from me. What I'm saying, I believe, is common sense. Mm-hmm. It falls within policy, it falls within reason. It's another thing to get the employees, in this case the officers, to tell me that in their own words. Which one holds, which ones will stay with them, probably out of their own mouth. And that's really what happened here. That sergeant got them to say what he was thinking. No mistakes were made, it was a clean pursuit, but the sergeant, that leader, took that opportunity to turn this into an awareness training environment, got them to say what he was thinking. And sometimes it's a loaded question, but loaded questions are good sometimes.
Well, there was also in that vignette an officer who said, well, then why didn't you do anything about it? When you've asked for this open discussion, you get a smart aleck response, you're still in charge.
Probably take it as a sidebar, and I believe that's what the sergeant did in the vignette. See me after the briefing here. Take it as a sidebar. We don't need to air dirty laundry in front of everybody.
It also sets an example, though.
Yes, it does. It does. And again, I think healthy discussion is much different than vindictive discussion.
A leader admits mistakes, thereby setting a tone of openness, where criticism becomes a tool rather than a weapon.
Gentlemen, I will speak bluntly. 6 months ago, when our army held New York City, we had 20,000 men and over 300 pieces of artillery. How many men here are fit for duty, any kind of duty?
Less than 2,000, sir.
Henry, how many pieces of artillery?
18, sir.
Less than 2,000 men, 18 guns, and we presume to fight against the most powerful nation on the face of the earth. In doing so, we have been smashed and smashed again. We have been flushed and chased and punished. Now, I must write to Congress and tell them of our condition. Well, gentlemen, what shall I tell them?
That we are on the west bank of the river, General. And that the British are on the east. And that there is no boat worth calling a boat on this river that is not in your hands.
Yes, we have a reprieve, a few days or weeks until the river freezes over.
And when the British walk across the ice with 20,000 men?
Then we retreat. Again.
Then the way is open and they take Philadelphia. What's left?
We are left.
So we have almost no food. No medicine, no blanket. I'm more of a physician than a general, and I tell you, we have jaundice and dysentery. So you tell me, in what condition are we left?
You are right, General Mercer. An army without supplies cannot endure. I propose we endure. Therefore, we will find what we need. Where is our alternative, gentlemen? Do we lay down our arms? Do we throw ourselves at the mercy of our enemy? No. So long as I command a corporal's guard, I will make some endeavor.
A leader is someone who provides direction.
Communication can be a broad and sometimes vague term. It is, however, an essential skill in leadership, especially when you're explaining decisions, what they're based on, and why they're made.
We're going to be doing a check on 2 occupants inside of the red Nissan, license plate 4 Frank 23024.
Zebra, copy.
Hey, do you guys know the park's closed?
No, sir, sorry. We're leaving now.
No, in a minute. Do you guys have any IDs on you?
Not on.
Ruben, do a check on her.
All right.
What's your name and date of birth?
Hey, roll down the window.
Gary Edwards. March 6th.
What's your name?
112 Zebra. Can I have a records check on a Gary Edwards 31479? Whose car is this?
Copy, stand by.
What's your date of birth?
Does your friend have a name?
Yeah, Mark.
Mark what?
I only know his first name, sir.
How you spell your last name?
How old's your girlfriend?
She's 24.
24.
You ever been arrested?
Hey, Ruben.
I'll be right back. Hang tight.
Stay right here. What's her story?
Yeah, man, this is Jess Michaels, DOB of 12972.
That makes her 29.
According to the DOB she gave me, when I asked her how old she was, she told me she was 25. She looks like she's 17, though. Something's not right.
I don't feel good about this guy at all. I'm gonna take him out of the car.
Hey, let me have her put some clothes on, too.
Okay.
112 Zebra.
Hey, Mr. Edwards, go ahead and step out of the car for me.
Ma'am, would you go ahead and put your jacket on? We're gonna have you guys get out of the car. I'll give you a little privacy. Hey, Ken, you okay?
Yeah.
Ken, you all right?
Yeah. 112 Zebra, foot pursuit, northbound in the park. White male, black t-shirt, Levi's on. We need some cover here. We need a perimeter set.
What do we have?
Sergeant Ruben and I, we came in the park and doing a security check. We saw this car in the park. 2 people were inside of it. As we got closer, the guy looked like he's like 30 or something, and there was a female in the car. She's like 15 or 16. We went up to talk to him. The girl was in her underwear. We asked the guy his name, date of birth with the girl, and they gave us bogus name, bogus date of birth. I didn't feel comfortable with it. I asked him to step out of the car. He stepped out of the car, I do a pat-down search, and the guy attacked me. Took off running.
Are you okay? Are you hurt?
Got a little scratch, but I'm okay.
Hey, Sarge.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Sarge. It's Officer Turtsky, K9.
Thanks for coming.
Sure, no problem.
Sergeant, we checked the area back here. Nobody matching the suspect description. But to be honest with you, it took about 5 minutes to set up a perimeter, and he could have gotten out.
Okay. How far did we search back there and there?
A couple 100 yards, nobody, except a couple of transient camps.
Okay.
Hey, Sarge, you are aware of how our dogs work, aren't you?
No, what do you mean?
Yeah, well, they're trained to find and bite, not find and bark. So if I send him in the canyon after somebody and he finds somebody down there, he's going to bite him.
So if I've got some homeless guy back there, you can't guarantee me that you can refrain him from the bite?
No, there's no guarantee. If he finds somebody and I'm away from him, he'll probably bite him.
Okay. All right, stand by here. Hey, LT.
Hey, Graham. Something I can help you with?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind running this one by you if I can.
Sure thing.
Okay, I got a 148, maybe a 243, but that's a bit of a stretch. No victim. Girl ran off. Ken's got a little bit of a scratch on his hand, but he's more sore than anything else. We're late getting a perimeter set up. There's a bunch of homeless people in the park.
So what's the problem?
Well, it's the find and bite with the canine.
Well, you know, our policy is pretty clear cut, so obviously we can't deploy the canine.
Yeah, that's good enough. Okay, thanks.
All right.
You can go in service. Thanks for your help. Appreciate it.
Sarge, no problem.
Okay, guys, get around. Okay, we're going to do a manual search. We're not using the canine. We're going to split in two-man teams. You two head down southeast here. You two, you're going to work up the road here and then cut down, okay? Everybody on the same channel? Any questions? Okay, let's go.
I would say the toughest part of making decisions for me is identifying all the ramifications of that decision and coming to peace with it within yourself, knowing it's the right decision, it's best for everyone. And sure, not everybody's gonna be happy, but if I feel that what I've done is the best thing at the time with the knowledge I had for everyone involved, I can rest easy with that decision.
You can't sit there and dwell and cry and whine if it didn't go right. It's a decision that you chose at the moment. It's what you thought was the right thing based on everything you had there. As cops, unfortunately, we second guess everybody, and that's not always right. We only can make a decision based on what we have in front of us right now at the moment. And when you make that decision, you made the best decision possible under the circumstances. And then you got to be open to the critique later. And you got to listen to it, take what's valuable, and deal with it and move on.
Craig, now the sergeant has to make a decision here. How much information does the team really need about this?
Well, I think they need it depends on when you're giving them the information. If it's an ongoing thing, they need to trust the sergeant's supervision and his direction as to what's going to happen at that particular moment. At the time, if they have no additional information to provide the supervisor to better direct the troops, as it were, then they have to trust his judgment that he may, at that particular point in time, be privy to some information that they may not have. And they have to trust his judgment and leadership, or hers.
And in the field is when that has to happen. There just can't only be so much questioning. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's a given. And I think the officers, when they're being deployed to do specific jobs, it's a given. You're going to be told what you need to know for that given task. Yes, you're probably, as the officer, wondering what's going on in the bigger scheme of things, but it's a given, it's accepted, it's a daily practice. You're being deployed to do a very specific job with very limited information, and that's the way it is. But there is a time when everyone will come together and get the big picture. And I think that is an important opportunity to make sure everybody knows what you know, to avoid rumors, especially if the call wasn't what I would call a clean call, if there was rumor mills, if, again, them against us. There is a time and a place, as Craig says, but at the time of the crisis, professionally, it's given. You'll be told what you need to know to do your specific task.
As a supervisor, before you make that decision, try to gather as much facts about what's going on before you make the determination on what everybody's going to be doing. You want to talk to as many people as you can and get as much information about what happened, and then make your calls on.
How does the leader set the priorities in the moment, in the field?
He provides the officer safety. If the officers aren't safe, then you can't perform your mission. But you have to have a mission. You have to have a prime directive, whatever it may be. And each circumstance is different, and each approach is going to be different. But I think you have to take you have to step away from the emotionalism of the moment and have a game plan and stick to that game plan and make sure everybody that has a role to play plays that role, so that you can take and navigate them through this and bring everybody out safely on the other end, not only to the public's benefit, but your own officers.
But realistically, how hard is it to separate yourself from the emotions of the moment? You also, as leaders, are still part of that team. And your concern over your officers, and then also just the adrenaline pump of what's going on. How do you control that?
For me, Kathy, it is hard to control because I do take the personal aspect of what happened to my officer. My concern is how's my officer, what happened to my officer. But you have to step back from that also and say, okay, well, what actually did happen here? What is the crime? What is the facts? And policy comes into play too. And how are we going to deal with this? So yeah, you're very concerned about what's going on with your officers that are working for you, but you have to be able to put that aside also to determine exactly what did happen. What did the crime happen? Is it a misdemeanor? Is it a felony? Is it an infraction? What really happened? And then what does policy say you can do?
Leaders remain calm, sometimes while others are not, taking time to clearly explain the reasoning behind their decisions.
This is a different kind of army. If you look back through history, you will see men fighting for pay, for women, for some other kind of loot. They fight for land, power, because a king leads them, or just because they like killing. But we are here for something new. This has not happened much in the history of the world. We are an army out to set other men free. America should be free ground. All of it. Not divided by a line between slave state and free. All the way. From here to the Pacific Ocean. No man has to bow. No man born to royalty. Here we judge you by what you do, not by who your father was. Here you can be something. Here is the place to build a home. But it's not the land. There's always more land. It's the idea that we all have value. You and me. What we're fighting for, in the end, we're fighting for each other.
A leader is a teacher.
Conflict is inevitable. How you handle it is essential to whether the conflict will grow or become something the team can get past and move forward.
You know, we found another 5 encampments out there. I didn't realize so many people lived in the park. I mean, a lot of things have changed. It's been a long time since I've been back out on the streets.
Hey, you know, there's always tomorrow. We'll get him next time.
Yeah, at least we know who this guy is. And, you know, I spoke to Ken. He asked me if he could go down to the hospital and get checked out. Afterwards, he said he's feeling a little tighter, but, you know, he's fine. He went down.
Excuse me. Elsie, how you doing?
Hey.
Sarge, can I talk to you for a second?
Sure, sure.
Well, I'm gonna get me a cup of coffee.
Thanks, LT.
Okay.
Have a seat.
Yeah, I just came from the hospital.
How is he?
The whole team's down there checking on Ken. He's okay. He's just a little sore. Sarge, you know, you should be backing us up out there. The department should be backing us up out there. These guys are jumping all over us, hurting us. You know, if one of us gets into a fight and we get hurt, the department needs to do everything it can to catch the suspect. Sarge, I'm telling you, we should have used the canines.
Look, I couldn't justify releasing the canine in this particular case. I mean, let's look at what we had. We had a misdemeanor crime, okay, a 148. It's not a felony. We had no felony at the time. The other thing is look at all the homeless people in the park there. If we would have released the canine, especially that canine who only knows how to bite, look what could have happened. And for what? A misdemeanor crime. And you know what? I spoke to his partner. It seems like the injury occurred more as the guy was trying to get away, as he wasn't exactly fighting or attacking Ken. So look, this guy just wanted to get away. He pushed Ken out of the way. Ken got a small injury. I mean, I saw it, and I've spoken to Ken and asked him time and time again, are you hurt? And he keeps telling me, no, I'm just a little bit sore. He's got a scrape. So releasing a canine, one that could go and bite innocent people, I just couldn't take that responsibility or that liability. Now, I think what we need to do is get all of us together as a team and sit down and hash this out. Because I can see you're pissed off. And I understand that probably the rest of the guys are pissed off too. But what we don't want is a bunch of misinformation. We want to know what happened. We'll all discuss it. And then if there was a better way of handling it, we'll go from there. Okay, guys, listen up. Ken's off sick today. I just spoke to him. He's fine. Okay, he's a little sore. He's got a scratch, but he's fine. We need to talk about yesterday's incident at the park. I know you guys are probably pissed off at a lot of the decisions that were made out there yesterday, but you have to realize those were decisions that were made at the time at the incident. Now, if you want to vent and sound off, go ahead. That's one of the reasons we're here today. But I want you to realize this first. This department, and me especially, are behind you 100%. If you ever got hurt, and I mean really hurt, I don't mean a little scratch or a cut, but if you got hurt, this department would use every resource available to it to go after the suspect, including biting canines. Now, about yesterday's incident, Ruben, you were one of the first guys there. Tell us what happened.
You know the city park's closed at 2200 hours, so we decided we'd make a check. As we thought, there was a vehicle in there, a truck, and it was occupied. We decided to make contact. Ken took the primary, went up on the driver's side. I took the passenger side. As I got up to the passenger side, I observed a female in there in her late teens, partially dressed, half nude. Figured, you know, lovers or something, didn't know. Ken then asked me to go ahead and ID her, get her information, and he would do the same to the driver. After we took care of that, we decided to talk about it at the rear of this truck. Things just, you know, were kind of hokey. And so we decided at that point, maybe we should pull somebody out of the car. Ken then went over to the driver's side and asked the driver to get out. He signaled to me that he was going to do a pat-down search. So as I made my way over to his location, I noticed that the struggle ensued. This guy wanted to get away. As I started to go to assist him, I looked over, and the girl's getting out of the truck running in the opposite direction. So I continue to help my partner, as we're trained to do, and the foot pursuit is on.
Let's talk about it. I don't want anything between us or anyone on this ship. Get it out. Let's talk about it.
As you know, I was a backup. I arrived at the scene. When I got there, I ran the license plate of the vehicle, obtained the RO information. Then I contacted the RO, who said that he had lent his vehicle out to his nephew that evening.
He's got a 3056 hold. We can go and we can hook him up. Okay, we know who he is. As far as yesterday at the scene, we didn't know that for sure. Okay, and we're not 100% sure of that now. But yesterday at the scene, to take it any further and to release that canine that doesn't know how to guard, only knows how to bite, we just couldn't do it, especially for 148 arrest, a misdemeanor.
You know, we can't be out there dancing around. We got to be decisive, and we got to release the dogs. These crooks know what's up, and if they see that we're being soft, then they're going to walk all over us.
What did we have? It's not so much being soft on the crooks, okay? This guy was trying to get away. He wasn't trying to hurt Ken. Wouldn't you agree, Ruben? How did it look to you?
Yeah, you know, he was more pulling away than attacking. That's true.
Hey, I'm not saying Ken did anything wrong. We all know Ken, good, sharp, energetic young officer, okay? But my personal belief is this guy was trying to get away, and perhaps push Ken out of the way or whatever. It wasn't a matter of this guy on Ken trying to beat his butt. Okay? If that was the case, then you'd have me as well as the rest of you guys all lined up. Okay? That wasn't the case. I don't believe it was. And to release the canine or take the whole incident up to another level, I just couldn't justify it.
The way to deal with conflict, at least in my opinion, is to deal with it head on and take it as it comes and just negotiate your way through it. And it may be unpleasant, but I think we can all do that and come out okay in the other end.
And I think you got to think about that decision that you're making and how it affects people, because sometimes it's not a popular decision, but you got to be able to make that decision, stand by it, listen to the critiques, acknowledge if you've made a mistake, regroup, rechange, and move on to the next one.
Bill, let's start with you. As a leader, how much venting do you allow?
I don't think that we should shy away from venting, but again, I see it more as a controlled venting. It really is a setup, if you will. Venting in a parking lot with people standing all over the lot screaming is probably not healthy. Sitting in a room, in a briefing room, hopefully with the doors closed, letting people take their best shots, I think is a good thing. I have a saying when I talk to people when we're going to start this process. It's okay to be honest, but for me, just don't be abusive towards me. But I open up. Let's have the dialogue. Let's put it on the table. Let's not be abusive towards each other. And let's sort this out. And maybe we use the term venting. Maybe this is really just a sorting out process. It's a fact-finding mission.
Well, venting is a way to let people express their feelings, their concerns, and express why anger if they feel anger or what's going on, and that's very healthy. But it gets to a point where it can turn to where it turns into a gripe session, complaints, and that's not going to get you anywhere.
Exactly. How much explaining is enough? Because you, as the office,
you got to monitor it. Yeah. You got to monitor and listen to what's being thrown out there, and when so much is coming out that, okay, now it's gotten to a point where it's gone from the healthy expression. Now we know how you feel. Okay, you don't need to continue on. Let's get back to now what can we do, or this is why we did what we did, and take it from there.
As a supervisor, I think it's very healthy to bring everybody back together, put all the pieces together, to be anal or linear about it, and let's talk about the facts of what occurred.
And this is a two-way conversation. It's not just them venting. Are you not, as the leader, saying, here's why I made this thus and such decision?
Yeah, I think venting is just a byproduct of somebody that's disgruntled because of limited information. If somebody wants to, vent just for venting's sake, I think to allow that to continue on and on and on at some point becomes counterproductive. I think to have a roundtable discussion, you have to have an objective. You have to want to try and accomplish something, and that's to get information out. So like Bill said, at the scene, everybody has a role to play. Everybody's part of a little jigsaw puzzle, and I think it's your job as a moderator or to host this to try and put the pieces into place and at least show why you made the decision you made at the time, so that hopefully it becomes a little clearer to them now than it did at the time.
And this is not necessarily for them to be able to second guess your decision.
No, it's just to understand why the decision was made, that maybe you were privy to some information at the time that they didn't, that they didn't have, and hopefully it becomes a little clearer. Now, there's going to be some people you're never going to be able to reach.
I think that as a supervisor, be prepared. These people may still leave the room not happy with your decisions, but as a supervisor, before this process starts, I have to be prepared for that outcome. In the ideal outcome, everybody tells me what a great person I am and what a great job I did now that we see the big picture. It may go that way, it may go the other way. There's not one, I'm not saying if it goes bad or they disagree that it's a bad thing, but at least everyone leaves with the same information.
Leaders deal with conflict in a forthright manner, basing discussion on the facts, even if agreement is not immediately forthcoming.
Come, Charles. Oh, Mrs. Burnside, I think I know what you want me to do. I'm not a bit sure I want to do it.
Agnes, where is your spine? Here you've been taking my dictation for weeks and you don't get the message of my book. Live, that's the message.
Live?
Yes, life is a banquet and most poor suckers are starving to death. Now, come on, Agnes, live. Come, child.
A leader has an ability to inspire others to accomplish the goal and buy into the vision.
Perhaps the most important words a leader can say are thank you.
Hey, Joe, thanks for covering that last traffic stop.
Oh, hey, that's what partners are for.
Hey, Joe, I need to see you for just a minute.
Okay, Sarge.
Joe, I'll catch up with you later.
Joe, I want to talk to you about your reports here. Just want to let you know that the quality of work that I'm seeing in these reports is excellent. You keep this type of work up, you're going to go places on this department. This is a sign of a good officer. So, you know what? I know we don't say this enough, but I just wanted to tell you that I appreciate the work that you're doing. And on behalf of me, I'd like to treat you to a cup of coffee.
Thanks, Sarge. I appreciate that.
All right, you have a good day and be safe, okay?
I will do.
I think mentoring is important. Today's supervisor has to take on a different role than our prior supervisors did. Nowadays, when you're put into the position of a supervisor, you're there as a mentor, instructor, confidant. You're not there to be going out and answering all the radio calls and you know, being out in the field. You have more of an administrative role to play. You have to look and take an active role in your officers' careers. You got to find out what is it that your officer wants. Does your officer want to be a patrol officer? Well, if that's all they ever want to be, that's fine. But you want to make sure that they're the best patrol officer that they can ever be in that position. If you have an officer who wants to become a supervisor, well then start gearing them towards that avenue.
Ramona, how do officers respond to being complimented on their work?
Well, I mean, everybody's human. Everybody likes to be recognized for good work done. So if you have an officer that you see has maybe gone, you know, one step beyond what they're expected to do in a normal situation, then you want to praise them for their work. You want to let them know that you're aware of what they're doing. You've seen it. Maybe it's been brought to your attention by their peers, but you want to pass that on. You want to let them know that you appreciate the hard work that they're doing, and just give them the pat on the back. Sometimes that can be just a verbal, or sometimes you might want to go the extent further and do the written commendation, maybe read it in front of their peers at a briefing, or have your supervisor, captain, commander, whatnot, do it, read it to them. But just acknowledge good work that they're doing, and it will come back. They will continue to want to, maybe not so much impress you, but just do a good job. It's very important.
Now, does this have to be kind of formal recognition, or even like here's your Starbucks coupon, like we saw in that scenario? Does it have to be that kind of recognition, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely not. I think just a nod. I think we can all remember, I certainly can in my career, the old crusty sergeant that didn't say too much. Police departments tend to, you know, they have no problem telling us as an organization what we did wrong on a particular incident. But oftentimes you historically never heard what you did right, and I think we can all remember, as I said, I certainly could in my career, the sergeant that was very sparing in his what we used to call attaboys, but that was worth its weight in gold. That was the gold standard if you got a good job from him. Just those two words, and you were on cloud nine for the rest of the shift because you knew you earned your pay.
It is a real art to understand individuals and find what touches their button, what makes them happy. Maybe that person, the Starbucks coupon is all it took. Some people, they don't like recognition. I'll take that back. We all like it, but we like it in different ways.
Yeah.
And some people, just that thing off to the side, good job on that. Or I read that report, good call. Or I heard, good call. Some people, you know that they really enjoy the public eye. They like it being read in briefing. They like it when others know. So it's really, to me, and it's back to this human nature thing, really understanding people, because some people it can backfire on you. To take someone who just likes a simple recognition, good call, and that's it, to read something in briefing or make something public really turns them off. And then there are others who really like that kind of stuff. So I think as a leader, you need to really gauge these people and do not just accept a blanket way of recognizing people.
Exactly. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways. Like I said, verbally and writing. You might find that a particular officer has a desire to become a detective, investigator, or whatnot. Maybe give them a little bit of acting investigation time. Let them go over and work in that particular unit and get some experience. That right there is telling them, hey, you know what? You've done great work. You deserve to get this extra opportunity, and you know it's going to help your career in the long way. I mean, that's another way of recognizing them for good work done. Let them be your acting supervisor when you're gone.
Leaders recognize the little things, taking a moment to let a team member know you are watching and commending them in ways that matter.
You ought to be ashamed of yourselves. A bunch of big guys like you, picking on a poor little orphan like him. Suppose you was torn away from your mother when you was just a baby. Nobody to tuck you in at nights. No warm, soft, caressing trunk to snuzzle into. How would you like to be left out alone in a cold, cruel, heartless world? And why? I ask you, why? Just because he's got those big ears, they call him a freak. The laughing stock of the circus. Then when his mother tried to protect him, they threw him into the clink. And on top of that, they made him a clown. Socially, he's washed up. Oh, but what's the use of talking to you cold-hearted boys? Go ahead. Have your fun. Laugh at him. Kick him now that he's down. Go on. We don't care. Come on, Dumbo.
A leader is someone to turn to for guidance.
Leading is sometimes a process of encouragement, inspiring others to go beyond what they think they can do or what they think can be done.
I've reviewed your file, Williams. Your past evaluations have been average, but right now your performance has been steadily decreasing. You're below standards in several areas, but the ones that hurt you most are interest in job, public employee relations, cooperation, and based on everything else, quality of judgment. In fact, in looking at your overall evaluation, I can't rate you acceptable in performance with minimum supervision. And in addition to that, I'm starting to get some negative feedback from the watch as well. People are getting tired of your cynical remarks, your sarcastic comments, your insensitive remarks. You're getting a reputation as a slacker. The bottom line is, you have to be watched. I know you want to be rated as an exceed standards employee, but this is going to hold you back. You want to know what the difference is between you and an exceptional employee? This is it. Do you have anything to say to this, or any questions?
Nope. You've got your thing to do, and I'll do my thing.
What am I missing here, Williams? I haven't worked with you long enough, let alone known you long enough, for this to be directed at me.
You're right, Sarge. You haven't been here long enough. You haven't been a cop long enough to know what I've done in my career or what's been done to me.
And that's why you should see me as a clean page. I mean, with only this to go by, change my mind, Williams. Let me see that officer who used to score 9s and 10s. You know, I've seen enough of your work to know that you have more than what you're putting out. But I need to know what's getting in your way, if I can help you at all.
You can't change some things. Once people have made up their minds, that's it. You just have to do what you have to do.
But look at it this way. If you're right, or if I'm right, what do we have to lose? We can take it day by day and situation by situation and see what happens. You know, if you're willing to work with me, I'm often requested to get officers to work special assignments. If you're interested in doing those, I can volunteer you for those types of situations. Sometimes we need acting sergeants, and I know that you have the ability to fill that role. You know, I'd like to see you in that role if you're willing to work with me. I mean, I could see stripes in your future. As a sergeant, conflict is a major part of your job. Although in the beginning I thought the conflicts were going to be situations, field situations, and those would be the biggest conflicts. In reality, it's more personnel issues that create more of the conflicts than anything. And the important thing is that you operate from a sense of duty to do the right thing. May not always be the easiest thing to do, but you have to look at the big picture and realize the consequences of what you do in a conflict affects a lot of people.
The genuinely good supervisors, I think a underlying trait, a character trait in all of them is they truly care for their officers and for the organization, and I think in any situation that comes through. The rest of it can be fine-tuned and tweaked and adjusted as we go in life and through your career, but I think you have to start off with the premise of caring.
One of the most difficult tasks for a new supervisor is legitimately supervising someone who may be 15 or 20 years older than you. But then again, I think it comes down to the basics. If you can earn their respect by holding yourself accountable and by doing the right thing and by being consistent, it might take a little bit longer for the older salty officer, but they're going to eventually come around and know that you're going to be fair and consistent.
Ramona, how difficult is it for an officer to avoid responding to this kind of question?
Well, as a supervisor, it can be very difficult. A lot of times you get the negative attitude that the officer is presenting to you, and you know, hey, you could look at it and say, I don't want to, if you don't care about your career, I don't care about it. You can adopt that attitude. So, and that's what you don't want to do. So you have to take what they're saying or the body language that they're putting out there, but make sure that you don't adopt that. You want to express to them that you care about them, about their career. You might not, but you don't want them to know that. You still have to act like you're concerned, listen to what they have to say, find out why they're acting that way, and talk to them about hopefully changing their attitude and bringing them back around. Because ultimately, you know, who's suffering? The officer's suffering, the department's suffering, citizens that come in contact with that particular officer are going to suffer. So you need to take the time to sit down and care about the person's career and try to get them straightened out.
But you know, I think as a leader, as a supervisor, it would have been very easy just to accept what had occurred. Mm-hmm. It would have been very easy to not respond to the officer, to just take it for what it is, have them go on their way. We have no confrontation, no conflict, no friction. And I believe that we are a society that loves to be in that position. No conflict, no friction. Everybody hold hands and sing Kumbaya. The hard part there is to put your personal emotions in check, because sometimes the people you're supervising are a little abusive towards you, whether it's verbal or body language. And it's difficult to put your own personal feelings in check and to see a greater being. Why am I here? Do I have a responsibility to the officer, to the department, to the people this officer has to come in contact with, whether it's others in the department or the public? Do I attempt to address a bigger problem?
Leaders show a willingness to listen and empathize with the individual issues of a team member and a willingness to help even in the face of a nothing-to-lose situation. As author James Baldwin wrote, "You cannot solve every problem you face, but you must face every problem you solve."
Residing in the occupied Netherlands must come forward according to the following regulations. A person is considered as being a Jew or part Jew if he has at least one grandparent who is regularly a full Jew. friend error is considered a coup if he belongs or has belonged to the New Age church.
You shouldn't be here. I've come for my star. They're for Jews. You don't have a J on your identity card. You could get it for me. If we all wear them, they wouldn't know the difference between a Gentile and a Jew. Go home, please. Go home. I will wear my star, and I won't take it off until God tells me to take it off.
A leader is empowering, guiding others to perform a mission based on policies and procedures of the organization.
Core values are the cornerstone of leadership, especially in the face of a moral dilemma.
Hey, thanks for the help on the pursuit yesterday.
You bet. What'd your troops have to say?
Actually, they had the same concerns I had.
Well, I'm glad it worked out for you then.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
You bet.
Thanks again.
Absolutely.
Hey, by the way, is that what I think it is, or is that cough syrup?
Well, I don't know. You just got off shift about a minute ago. Are you asking as a friend, or is this official?
Actually, it's both.
But all you can do is do what you know is right, explain to people why, and let them know what your duty is and why you're doing those things. And I've had pretty good success in those instances.
Loyalty through the organization, loyalty to yourself and your values, loyalty to your troops doesn't always match with the duties of being a sergeant. You have to find that path that doesn't compromise your loyalty and your character, but accomplishes what the goal of the duty is. It's a tough path to follow.
As I think back to the best supervisors I've had, I think about commitment, I think about character, and also consistency and fairness. I look back to the people I like to work for, and I like the way they carried themselves and they treated everybody on the team as best they could in the same manner.
Police officers I hear all the time, I put on that uniform, I'm a different person. And I take off that uniform and I'm Joe Blow citizen, and I think that's baloney. I put on that uniform, I want to be the same on and off outside of the uniform, and I want to live 24 hours the same type of person. I don't think just because I'm carrying a badge that I should be somebody different, that I should be all of a sudden a leader. I should be a leader at all times, not just when I'm wearing the badge.
Bill, how do real leaders handle this moral dilemma?
Twofold. The dilemma of friendship and the dilemma of responsibility to your employer, to the public. For me, it's not a very clear, defining moment in my mind as to exactly how to handle it, but I think that in the decision-making process, that leader has to say to themselves, himself or herself, that I have multi-responsibilities here, and almost as a cop-out for myself, I would say, I don't know how I would handle that. But what I do know is in the decision-making process that I have to be aware of multiple responsibilities and then move forward.
I think as a friend, you would go to that person and say, you've put not only yourself in a predicament, but you've now put me in a predicament, or you've put me in a predicament and yourself.
That's a very
Let's
tough
talk
one.
about this. It's very hard. And whatever your decision is, you're going to have to live with that decision.
In this scenario, it's a sergeant versus sergeant. Really no different than officer versus officer. An officer sees another officer do something which is extremely inappropriate. Does the officer take action? We talk about what is a supervisor. Do they only exist with 3 stripes? Do they exist with bars? Do they exist from the lowest level to the top of the organization? Are we all supervisors? Do we all have responsibilities? This responsibility is at all levels. This isn't just a sergeant thing. And I think the issue, and going back to the question, what does a leader do? I think the first thing to be said is a leader does something. Just do something.
In that particular vignette, he did. He called him on it. And of course it faded. We didn't really get to see what happened after that. But he didn't look the other way. He called the sergeant's judgment into into view and asked, what is that? What are you doing? Is it what I think it is? I think it was made more difficult by the fact that they had a personal relationship. They were not only co-workers, but they were friends, and I think that was obvious from the vignette. But I think if you ignore that, then that becomes the new standard. What next are you going to ignore?
It gets you thinking, and it can happen to you. You could be put in that predicament, so you have to think about it.
That could be a cry for help.
Yeah.
It could be the most positive and benevolent thing you could do for that guy is to start some kind of process to get him help. He may not realize it at the time, but somewhere down the line, he might.
In the face of a moral dilemma, leaders do the right thing.
Listen up, ladies and gentlemen. Our fugitive has been on the run for 90 minutes. Average foot speed over uneven ground, barring injuries, 4 miles an hour. That gives us a radius of 6 miles. What I want out of each and every one of you is a hard target search of every gas station, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, or doghouse in that area. Checkpoints go up at 15 miles. Your fugitive's name is Dr. Richard Kimball. Go get him.
A leader is a motivator, someone to get us thinking.
When the moment comes to command, the environment you've established will take hold.
Hey, why don't we go another way?
It's no problem here. They know me. I live right down the street.
Okay. So, what you doing here? What do you want? Huh? Get up, dude! Get out the car! Fucking nigga, what are you doing? Get out the car, bro! Fucking nigga, what are you doing? Fucking nigga! Let's go, nigga! You know I live right here. Get the fuck out of here, man! Shit, man! Man, what the fuck? Somebody call an ambulance!
What do you think? Everyone I talk to here says it's just a regular street fight, just a street brawl.
Same thing here. Listen, all the witnesses I talk to, they just say it's just 2-on-1. That's it.
Come on, man. Let's clear this thing. We get out of here in an hour.
Now, look, I'm telling you there's something more to this. I mean, you got 25 people here and nobody saw anything. The light-skinned guy didn't even get stabbed. I'm telling you this is a racially motivated 245A. Sarge, I think we've got a hate crime.
You feel pretty certain about it?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, in that case, we'll go with the hate crimes protocol. Let's get this thing cranked up. Pull some yellow crime scene tape. Let's get this closed down. You guys start working the neighborhood, trying to locate witnesses. I'll get some help out here. We'll round the rest of them up. Let's get this thing cranked up and get it done. Sam 1-3, we're going to need detectives to respond out here. It's a possible bias crime. Also, I'll need a crime scene unit, and if you've got some additional units free, we could use them for crowd and traffic control out here and to work the additional witnesses.
Thoroughly believe that what your daily conduct is and how they respond to you and believe in you and respect what you're going to do will reflect in every critical incident where you get out there and you have to make some authoritative decisions, that they will respond to those because they recognize that, hey, I know where he's coming from. I know that if he does something that maybe I don't agree with, he'll explain it tomorrow because right now it's a critical incident.
Crisis is going to go smoothly if you've built the foundation on a daily and a weekly basis prior to that. If you have been consistent with your people and you've been concerned with their welfare and you have earned their respect over a period of time, when crisis happens, your job is done. Now let's just handle the problem.
And you build a following, you build allegiance, where they trust you and you trust them. You know, it's purely off trust. And then when it gets critical, when it comes to the officer-involved shooting, or it comes to the triple homicide, or whatever the incident might be that you're thrown into, and you have to make those command decisions, your officers don't question you.
Now, how does the environment that you have established as a leader affect what goes on in the field in a situation like this, where you do have an incident that's underway?
Well, I think if you have a reputation as somebody that takes charge and moves in a forward direction, balancing once again all of the concerns as a supervisor that you have to contend with, which is the public good, the department's goals, civil liability, officers' well-being, and you have a reputation as somebody that can make decisions in non-critical day-to-day situations and operations, then I think during those times of crisis they're going to look and follow your lead and your direction as well, because you've laid the foundation for that.
You built the team.
It's also important for them to know where you're coming from. You're not just coming from left field and saying, oh, we're going to do this. You've built it up. You've gone, through day in and day out with these folks, and they know where you're coming from when you make a decision. And at that point in time, when it's a critical incident, maybe somebody's life's on the line, or something's going on that you don't have time to explain things, they know that the role that they've been given is important, and they know why you're giving it to them. They'll go off and do it. If they have questions, they know, hey, we'll debrief on this later, and then we can bring those questions up. But you got to have some consistency about yourself, and let them know where you're coming from when you're making your decisions.
So this means, Bill, like when you're out in the field faced with this, you've laid all this groundwork, so there's no questioning really of what is going to happen. The officers feel free to say, in this case, I'm telling you this is a hate crime.
I think the key word here is credibility. Is credibility established in an incident? No. Is credibility established based on day-by-day events? Yes. If you're credible, people will follow a leader. They may not know why they're following them. That old saying that, hey, if he says jump off the cliff, I'll jump off the cliff. I'll sort it out later. Why would you do that? Because I trusted that person. That person has credibility. That is what, in my opinion, a leader is people will they will do the right thing based on your leadership, based on your direction. As Ramona was saying, we're all human. We all question things. There's a place and a time. And one who has established credibility, people know there'll be a time and a place that I'll be allowed to ask my questions, but I will just take it on that leader's credibility, the credibility they've established. I'll just do what they've asked me to do, and we'll sort it all out later on.
Now, what can happen if you have not established this kind of credibility, as you call it, with your team?
I'll tell you right up front, the odds are they will do what you tell them to do while you're looking at them. But once they are out of your line of sight, it's a question mark.
They're not only gauging your ability to supervise and lead, as opposed to just caretaking somebody or managing. Nobody wants to be managed. They like to be led. And their stock goes up as well, because you're seeing how they perform in a variety of circumstances, and they make intelligent decisions, make sound judgment calls that provide for the well-being of the public and the officers involved, and their stock rises as well. And you know that that is an individual in a clutch situation that you can rely on, because every scene that somebody steps up to the plate and helps the squad through an incident, like Bill said, that's a little chaotic and a little hairy, then the reservoir, the bank of responsibility goes up, and they become known as somebody that is a go-to person, and that you trust their judgment just as well as they in turn can learn to trust yours.
It's the two-way street.
If you've got an officer who is at the scene, got there maybe before you did, and is doing a bang-up job and everything's under control, they're giving you know what? Stay back. Stay back. Gather the information you're going to need to debrief your command staff or what your supervisors, but let them run with it, because you're showing them that, you know what, I trust your abilities. You know what you're doing. I'm not going to micromanage you. And then they will respect you, too, because they'll say, you know what, that supervisor knew I could do this, and gave me the chance to show what I can do. And it helps them maybe in their career or just in their self-esteem. And if they're doing a fine job, let them go.
Does a leader have to have all the answers? I don't think so.
Well, it's also a matter of sharing that leadership in some ways. It's like you were saying, Ramona, if somebody's doing a good job, let them do it.
Well, she hit on it, the officer on that scene. There is direction given in law enforcement throughout this country. The first person on the scene is in charge of that scene, and sometimes they are the supervisor. Even though you are physically there, until you say, I have taken the scene, that individual is the supervisor of that scene. And there are times when a supervisor will come riding in on their white horse and take over a scene, not knowing what is going on, and that will bite you in the rear end. So to be a supervisor, do you have to have 3 stripes? Do you have to have bars? No. The lowest to the highest level of the organization, in effect, we're all supervisors at different times.
Leaders take charge in a critical incident as the reflection of an environment of trust and respect created over time. At the beginning of the course, we gave you an opportunity to take a leadership quiz. We have our panelists back now to go over some of the answers with you. The first question was, you feel strongly that you've made a poor decision in your supervisor position. Bill, you can answer this one. What do you do?
Well, I think it's appropriate to ask for feedback from your colleagues and the officers of your watch, and it's also okay to acknowledge your actions when they're appropriate.
And the next question asked whether an effective leader is one who, what, Ramona?
Well, it would be, all of the answers would be correct.
Question 3. Your lieutenant has asked you to recommend an officer for special detail, which may lead to that officer's professional advancement. We had 4 possibilities here, Craig. Which one did you think was the right one?
Well, I think you have to carefully review the strengths and weaknesses of your team and recommend the officer who you feel is best qualified for that particular assignment. Gauging their particular strengths and or weaknesses, you try and tailor the job to the strengths that officer may have.
All right, question 4. You have been instructed to communicate what you believe is a poor command decision regarding an ongoing program to the officers on your watch. We had 4 possibilities on this one, Bill. What do you do?
You should clearly communicate the command's decision, and that should be done clearly and honestly. But I think at the same time, you should seek the watch's input as to how this decision can best be implemented, while at the same time meeting the objectives of the department.
All right, question 5. This one's for you, Ramona. You observe a team member taking extra care with the details of his or her job. What do you do?
Well, you take the moment to tell the officer that their efforts have not gone unnoticed. You want to make sure that you acknowledge them.
And question 6, Craig. You have a team member who is always grumbling about almost everything. What do you do?
Well, I think you have to go and confront the officer directly and in private what's bothering him or her, and ask, what can be done, what I could do as a supervisor, or what they might be able to suggest to make things better. I don't think you allow it to continue. It's counterproductive.
Question 7, Bill. Emotional intelligence includes what?
In this case, all the options are appropriate.
Question 8. A member or members of your team are acting in opposition to your directives as team supervisor. Ramona, what do you do?
Well, you want to listen carefully to their criticism, and then you want to address it calmly. You don't want to show any emotion, and then you want to guide the team back to the business that's at hand.
All right, Craig, question 9. The team has a strongly negative reaction to a department decision. What do you do?
Well, I think you listen to the team's objections and encourage them to find an acceptable solution, in that you recognize that they don't care for the directive or the order, but you put that behind them and find a solution and not dwell on the problem.
And finally, question 10. The team is really just a loose group of officers doing their own thing and making their own decisions. Now they need to work together. Bill, what do you do?
Well, in this case, you'd create an immediate plan for the team members to work together, and by assigning specific tasks and directives.
The process of leadership development is a very personal one that invites you to examine who you are as you work to shape your future. One management and leadership writer said, Leadership, like swimming, cannot be learned by reading. Leadership is a moment-by-moment experience, characterized most of all by having the courage to lead. We close with the words of Professor Karen Kaiser Clark. Life is change. Growth is optional. Choose wisely.